If you have ever walked out of a cinema because the film was so bad. What one was it? I've never walked out of a movie and I saw Cats opening weekend. Oh. I remember vividly. It was Battlefield Earth. The shot angles kept being tilted this way and that for no reason, and I started tilting my head so that things would be level. Then my friend joined in. Then we simultaneously were like, are we going to cramp our necks for this? And walked out. I've only ever walked out of one movie. And that was The Last Airbender, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. As a fan of the original animated series, I was excited to see a live-action adaptation. But the movie was a huge disappointment. The acting was wooden, the script was clunky, and the special effects were underwhelming. I made it about halfway through the movie before I decided that my time was better spent doing something else. It's rare for me to walk out of a movie. But The Last Airbender was just that bad. I guess this technically counts, but when I went to see Deadpool 2, the cinema accidentally put the wrong film on and played some Amy Schumer film instead. Everyone in the screen thought it was some meta Deadpool joke and out of nowhere he'd appear and shoot Amy Schumer, so we were all waiting on that. After about 10 minutes of the film, the staff came into the screen and explained that they had put the wrong film on and couldn't undo it because of their tight schedule, etc., but we would all get a refund and were welcome to stay and watch the rest of the Amy Schumer film. Everyone left. Epic movie. Wasn't epic at all. My parents took me and my sister to see a cool-looking superhero movie when we were kids. That movie was Watchmen. My parents pulled us out after the big blue penis scene. Edit for clarification. Not to say it's a bad movie. It's one of my favorite movies. Emoji Movie. Took my brothers to see it while I was babysitting. Almost committed suicide in the theater. Green Lantern. Even Ryan Reynolds acknowledges how bad it is. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Once we got to the montages that were all of season 1. They didn't think were worth it. It was clear this wasn't the show I loved. Way back in the 70s, the movie Freaks, 1932, was re-released due to being banned in America for 40 years. My dad, my brother-in-law and myself went to see it. My dad is a extremely straight-lace, no humor type of guy, and we couldn't figure out why he wanted to see it. It was pretty wild for my dad. But he made it through it. However, the second feature, a horror film called Private Parts, 1972, not Howard Stern's movie, was a bit much for Dad. During a scene where the main character was fucking an inflatable doll full of water and injecting it with blood drawn from a victim, my dad stood up and said in a loud voice, "This is disgusting." And he walked out. My brother-in-law was right behind him. My brother and myself sat there laughing for about another 5 minutes before we got up and left. They were waiting out front for us, and Dad says he was only going to wait another minute before leaving and we would have had to walk home. I left Frozen when I was 11 because I was scared. LMAO. Not the worst movie ever made, but the only movie I ever walked out of was The Butterfly Effect. I wasn't really enjoying it to begin with, but the girl who went with me had been sawed as a child by her father, so when the basement scene came on I looked at her and could tell she was petrified with PTSD. So I said, "This movie sucks. You wanna go?" And I got her out of there. Wow. I want to thank everyone for all the kind words. I'm just a guy who tries to make the conscious effort to do the right thing. I want to clarify though. I did get this movie on DVD to finish it, and I don't think it's a terrible movie. Personally, the only part that bothers me is the dog torture scene. Beyond that, I find the premise fascinating and there is some really good acting in the movie. I will just always have a weird feeling about this movie because of this event. Like a song you can never separate from a memory. I've got a story of a film, my friends, and I refuse to leave. Actually, in 2006 I was turning 14 and was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean. My mom threw a Pirates-themed birthday party where my friends and I were meant to go to see Dead Man's Chest, which was still in theaters in August when the party was. We dressed up for it and everything. Well, for some reason the showing we were going to see was packed despite the movie having been out over a month. So there weren't 12 tickets available. My mother, and my friend's mom who came along, made a split-second decision to see the next PG-13 rated movie available. Talladega Nights. The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. So a gaggle of 14-year-old girls dressed as pirates walked into this theater to a bunch of weird looks. But we sat down with our popcorn as normal. The next hour and a halfish saw the moms be horrified at the crass nature of the film and keep asking if we wanted to leave. The answer was a hell no from the whole group. That movie proceeded to be the basis of our inside jokes for the next 4 years. To this day it's one of our collective favorite grade school memories. Even if my mother continues to be embarrassed by it. I almost walked out on Jurassic World Dominion. But my friend bought a ticket for me and was super excited about it, so I stayed just for him. I am a huge dinosaur nerd. I love Jurassic Park and am generally happy to see anything featuring dinosaurs. It doesn't happen often, so I'm not picky. Just give me my big lizards, thank you. But Dominion was on a whole new level of bad. Just why? Jupiter Ascending. You know it was horrible when I didn't want to see more Mila Kunis. Striptease. Burt Reynolds in boxer shorts. A cowboy hat and boots. Covered in Vaseline. Rubbing himself with dryer lint from Demi Moore's laundry. I do not know how that movie ends. Just know that I asked for my money back on a $1 noon matinee. I saw 28 Days with Sandra Bullock when I was 12 with a few friends. For some reason we thought it was related to 28 Days Later and was about zombies. We were very disappointed. Suicide Squad 2016. The movie had really bad pacing and bland action. About halfway through we were so bored we got up and left. It was one of those movies where you're not really given much reason to care how it ends. Still stands as the only one I've ever walked on. Never walked out of a movie. The closest I came to walking out was Mortal Kombat: Annihilation. Man, what a steaming shit pile of a movie. I didn't walk out though. But someone else did. He stood up halfway through the movie. Yelled out, "This movie fucking sucks." Then farted loudly. And left. That man is a king today. A legend that my friends today still remember fondly. It was the fart that cemented his legend. Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler. Normally I like his movies, but not only was Jack and Jill his worst movie ever. I think it might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Wonder Woman 1984. By weird coincidence, I just walked out of Renfield earlier this evening. It's not that it was so bad, I've seen worse. But I was basically just there on a late night whim and found I was the only one in the theater. After a while I realized I really wasn't enjoying myself and didn't care that much how the movie ended. So on the off chance I was the only one keeping the employees from getting things shut down for the night, I just left. The Love Guru. Walked out to see The Happening for the third time instead. LMAO. The Last Jurassic Whichever. Holmes and Watson. My family really enjoyed Step Brothers and Talladega Nights. So I shouted the 5 of us to the movies on Christmas Day because for some reason the cinemas were open and it was showing and we don't really do big celebrations. 15 minutes into the movie we all looked at each other like, WTF is this? I tried to leave. I went to ask for a refund because their policy said you can get a refund 30 minutes into the movie. But we were 5 minutes late because of the 20-minute trailers. I'm still seething about spending $100 to basically die of boredom for an hour and a half. I was sitting there embarrassed about suggesting the family outing. My family stuck it out because I'd paid for it and couldn't get a refund even though I told them I didn't care and begged to leave. I walked out of 28 Days Later. Not because it was bad. I was 9 years old and snuck in and it was freaking me the fuck out. Watched it years later and enjoyed it. I've not. But when I saw In Bruges, an elderly couple walked out after 20 minutes and I heard the man muttering that this wasn't a film about Belgium at all. It really tickled me. Thor 2 or 3. I fell asleep before the middle. Then it startled me with a loud noise. Which pissed me off. So I left. Downsizing. Man, did this movie have a great premise as a potential funny comedy. But out of nowhere it turned into some weird political love story. I remember in the middle of this movie audibly saying out loud, "Where the fuck is this story going? I don't know how you screw this up," but they did. I never walked out of a movie. But I was reading the Aragon series in early high school. My bestie and I waited 2 hours in a mall to see this movie cause we showed up late. I entered that theater with utmost optimism. I never would have imagined what was in store for us. It took me 2 weeks of slowly sinking into a pit of despair as I thought about the movie. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was utter fucking trash. When I came to this conclusion, it killed any joy in the series, and I stopped reading the second book midway, and I liked what I was reading. I was really looking forward to seeing what the monster soldiers looked like because I thought they were super fucking cool in the books. Instead, well, I was more than a little let down. I paid, so I stay. Tenet, not because of the movie, but because of the sound quality. I'm not a native English speaker and I had a hard time understanding the dialogues. Without understanding the dialogues, it was hard to follow the story. Lady in the Water. If I saw it on a fucking airplane, I would have walked out. Pacific Rim Uprising. Worst sequel even made. I generally just switch from trying to enjoy it to enjoying roasting the shit out of it. MST3K really gave me an amazing tolerance for bullshit cinema. I went to see the Total Recall remake with my then GF. We walked out about 40 minutes in. We were also the only people in there. WW 1984. The newest Ant-Man movie felt like Marvel ruined all credibility. After 30 minutes couldn't do it. Not walked out, but I've never been able to sit through all of Batman v Superman. Went to the cinema for it and fell asleep halfway through. I tried watching the director's cut at home a few years later and you guessed it. Fell asleep halfway through. My wife and I tried seeing The Aristocrats. After about 20 minutes we realized that it just wasn't very enjoyable, so we left. The theater next door had just started showing a film called The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. So went in there instead. That turned out to be a pretty good movie. Black Adam. Only movie I've ever walked out of was The Golden Compass. The Avengers. The spy movie. Not the Marvel one. I had to walk out of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo because the rape scene triggered me. But I went back in after. I've never left and stayed gone. The Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey. The critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes starts with, "An irritating witless farce. I think that was generous." I literally walk out of the cinema every time I see a movie. The third Transformers movie is the only movie I've ever walked out during. Yes. The Last Airbender. What a tragic excuse for a movie. There was a scene where Aang was about to fight a whole army, so he does his little dance, trying to summon whatever powers he is supposed to have, and the army was just standing there, waiting for him to stop his prancing so he could use his powers. That was the moment when I decided that cycling back home through the rain was more pleasant than staying. Pearl Harbor was the closest I came to walking out. Some shite about gerbils. G-force or something? I remember seeing that with a friend when we were younger. I mainly remember being confused why there was a guinea pig love triangle. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.